My prayers go out to everybody that's been affected by fires in the past year, and I've been watching Narrowway Homestead and down there in West Virginia, they're fighting some wildfires, and that was something I never thought about. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here like in the past 25 minutes watching other people go through some shit, and I'm like, man, what would I have done? Because there's really nothing you can do in the spur of the moment. But having this hindsight now of, or foresight now of a fire could break out if when I get myself and Honey out into the woods on a piece of property and we start homesteading. Um, that's something I've really been putting some thought into here for the last few minutes, and it's easy to be a wise guy, and money doesn't grow on trees, for Christ's sakes. But so I've been talking about building wells along the creek line. So wherever the water, and I know most creeks come from the runoff, and when it's not rainy, the cricks, I call them cricks, but everybody else calls them creeks. The creek gets low, and of course the creek gets big. Like if you watch that Will Survives, his creek is only so big, and then it like triples in size when it rains. So you find where its largest point is, and I've got this idea that I seen from watching other videos where I would build a forum, let's say 8 foot around, and I make it about 1 foot thick, and I build it. I make a concrete ring. Of course, I would have to reinforce it with probably some. See, I don't see. I guess making a steel inside of the forum, I forget what it's called, would help with stability. But what I would have to do is on the inside of the forum make a U on each side, and that way after that settles and I dig it out, like when we're all done, I can put spacers in there. You know what I mean? And of course I'd have to spin it, that way there's structure the whole way. But then I could put like, for real, like logs, or make a concrete spacer, and that way nothing can collapse it. But by each creek, you know what I mean, you build these wells and you do a little bit of a diversion upstream, and that way the water flows down, and then after that fills, there's enough of a spillover to go back to the creek. You know what I mean? You don't want to do it at a really wide area. You want to do it at a small area. That way because if the area is already small, like, and I'm saying like 2 foot across by maybe a foot deep throughout the normal time of the year, and then when it dries up, it's a little smaller, but then when it rains, it overflows. You know what I'm saying? That's where you build it. Now this isn't going to help the whole entire state unless, like, so if I get myself on a property and I could do this, I want to make it a business. You know what I mean? I want to make it a business where I could get paid to go to homesteads and find, areas where they have water access from a creek and do this. Now people are like, well, what happens if you don't have a creek? Well, then what you do is you got to build a well. You got to find a low-laying spot, and you got to cut all the vegetation out of the way. That way the water runs down there. But you're also going to have to put rock. Like, I was thinking, let's say you find an area that has like a horseshoe hill, okay? Or just one big flat side hill. If you remove all the vegetation and the trees, which drink all the water, you can then build a big-ass hole down into the ground, okay? And then on the hillside, put like, I would say you'd have to use concrete, but thin concrete slabs, and you smooth off the surface, finish the surface, I guess is what it's called. And then all that water hits, it doesn't soak into the ground, it just runs down to your little reservoir. And then you just, even if there's not, a creek access, you just made yourself a reservoir. And there are ways to plumb it too before you like as you're building it, you know what I mean, right before you're done, you have to use maybe some type of PVC or stainless steel, whatever wouldn't rust out. But you can make a pump system for it. Yep. Yeah, I got a whole big idea. I hope I can get myself out to a homestead. I'm so glad that I seen these videos, and because like I said, I pray for everybody out there. I hope everybody and their animals survive. And if I was out there right now, because I guess 2021 I was going to be homesteading, I would be up shit's creek right now. I wouldn't know what to do. Uh, and my prayers go out to these folks, and I'm very thankful for people who videotape what's going on, because now I have a whole idea in my head. Instead of just blowing the leaves away from where I'm trying to live, I have to gather them up, even in the woods, you know what I mean? Even have to take the time sometimes to go into the woods and just gather up sections of leaves and put them in your compost. And that way, like, you know, if this whole perimeter is your homestead property, you want to metaphorically come out a football field or two, because I was watching that fire jump. You come out a football field or two. Just, you don't have to do the whole thing in one day. You just do a section this day, do a section this day. Of course, you're never going to get rid of all the leaves and down stuff, but then there you go, overthinking it. I'm always overthinking it. Then I also had this idea, okay, if you got an excavator and the fire's coming, why don't you just go ahead and try to rip off 10 feet of the surface and build a fire mound, but then you're destroying your property pretty quick anyway. And then I was like, okay, well, what if you do some preemptive strikes? What if you get a bunch of loose dirt and you build a mound around your homestead? So this is the perimeter of your homestead, and you build a mound, a big mound, not super huge, but a big mound around your entire homestead, and then you just salt that. See, I don't like using chemicals. And I know they say you don't want to salt the earth because of impurities. I'm not saying go out and put thousands of pounds of salt all over the ground. I'm saying just on your mound, on the crown of your dirt mound, maybe even the whole dirt mound, just spray salt, enough of a saline solution to where it would kill the vegetation and not really hurt the animals. You know what I mean? You might get some deers coming around because they want the salt lick, but besides that, I mean, and then that fire jumps, you know what I mean? That was just another idea. I was like, well, shit, what else could you do? You know what I mean? I also had an idea if you're doing these little wells and reservoirs, because I like the whole ram pump idea where I ram pump water up a hill from a reservoir I've built and let it run back downhill in a contraption, set up a couple contraptions to create electricity. Well, what if we had a shutoff valve and a couple of shutoff valves? Because you wouldn't have enough pressure to run water throughout the whole entire system and make it work. So you'd have to have the system broke down into sections. And then, like, for instance, if I'd be on my property and I had a 200-foot circle, you know, every 50 feet, I would have a shutoff valve where, you know, at my garage where, okay, shutoff valve for section 1 on. So turn on a compressor, water will only go out to section 1. Then you turn off section 1, turn on section 2. Water, you know, you let pressure build up, then you turn the water on and it sprays it out. And then, you know, you just do that in synchronized circle, you know, boom, 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 boom. Then, you know, thinking, what else could you do? Could you do that throughout the whole entire property? You know what I mean? Could you set something up? Because sprinkler systems are a little tricky, but if you winterize them and then nothing happens, you know what I mean, you take good care of them, you probably could set up a sprinkler system based off of a ram pump and one of these wells that I'm thinking about building. And the wells end up being like 8 foot around on the inside and I try to go as deep as you can, you know what I mean? You'd probably only get about 3 or 4 of those deep. So what's that? 8 foot round. Say you make them 5 foot deep. So you get 15 to 20 foot deep. You know what I mean? You get 4 or 5 of these rings, and they, you know, as you dig out, they slide down. You make another for them. Once that dries, you start digging out again. You just keep repeating that process. You can make these everywhere. And then, like I said, ram pumping the water uphill. I seen these charger devices that you could put in a creek with flowing water, and you can charge like phones and stuff like that. Why not make one of those on a bigger scale, but instead of putting it flat in a creek, have it running downhill? Ram pump all that water uphill, run it down through multiple stations. You're not hurting any wildlife. I mean, that's a pretty damn good idea. I hope somebody takes me up on my offer, on my ideas. I mean, sorry, my kid took a nap and she's awake. Bye.